Hello and welcome. This afternoon, we're going to be having the Student of Color panel for the Yale School of Management. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Tiffany Gooden, and I'm the Director of Community and Inclusion here at the Yale School of Management. And this session is taking place right in our wonderful Evans Hall, which is the main building for the School of Management students. We look forward to sharing a little bit about our community with you today. And we also have the ability to take any questions that you might have. You want to address your questions through the Q&A function in the Zoom, and we'll be able to answer some of those, not all of them probably, but answer some of them today. Please note that we'll be recording this session, so that'll be great if you want to look at it at a later time, or if you want to share it with friends. As long as, if you have any questions about admission specifically, as a follow-up, you can always email the mba.admissions@yale.edu inbox. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn to my left, and Natalia, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm a second year here at the Yale School of Management. I'm originally from Colombia, but I was raised in Miami, Florida. During the summer, I interned at the United Nations Development Program in Mexico City. And prior to school, I used to work at ExxonMobil as an engineer. Here at Yale, I've been involved with the Association of Hispanic and Latin American Students, and I had the honor to organize the first ever Hispanic and Latin American conference in the history of the school. So hopefully we'll be able to speak a little bit more about that.
Wonderful. Vance?
Hi, everybody. My name is Vance Lewis. I'm also a second-year student. I'm originally from Paoli, Pennsylvania, which is right outside Philadelphia. I went to Howard University for undergrad and then joined Teach for America in Philadelphia. So I taught for a total of 5 years. 2 of those years I was an administrator. That was what I did prior to SOM. This past summer, I worked at McKinsey in San Francisco in consulting, and I will be returning full-time in a few months. At SOM, I'm a leader of the Black Business Alliance, which I'm happy to talk about, the Consortium, Consulting Club, and I'm also in student government. And outside of that, some more fun things. I do hockey club, and I play music in a band here on campus as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Phil Ross. I'm a first-year MBA student. Grew up in Colorado, but moved here most recently from San Francisco. Prior to SOM, I'd worked in finance at Goldman Sachs and Dropbox for the last 4 years in San Francisco and Australia. I came to SOM looking to pivot into the education space, and I'll be interning at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative this summer in San Francisco, which I'm really excited about. In terms of what I'm involved with on campus, really involved in our education club, and we just finished up hosting the largest student-run education leadership conference, which took place last year. I'm a member of the Consortium, which I'd be happy to talk a little bit more in detail about, and I am involved with a lot of the athletic stuff that happens here. And on the day you're catching us, we happen to have our first-year, second-year basketball game. So if you hear any back and forth between Vance and I, that's the background about why it's coming.
Hi, everyone. My name is Uma Krishnan, and I am a first-year MBA student here at SOM. Prior to coming to SOM, I worked in New York City doing international tax operations at a private equity firm, but came to business school to do a 180 shift into education. Also involved with the Education Leadership Conference with Phil, as well as doing a lot of admissions-related work here on campus. This summer, I'll be consulting at Bain in Houston, and because Bain has a huge education presence, which is super cool. And I'm also involved, like I mentioned, with a lot of admissions-related things. I am the 2019 admissions chair as part of student government here, and I'm excited to get more involved with a lot of the initiatives to make sure that we have, we continue to have a diverse perspective here at SOM. It's something that we're really focused on.
Wonderful. So start us off. Maybe we can, I'm trying to think of, we'll start with you, Phil. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about kind of why you chose SOM. When you were looking at all of the programs that were out there, why did SOM stand out for you?
Sure. I think knowing that I was looking to get into the education space, I think SOM just has this really rich history of sending leaders into the not-for-profit sector and the public sector. So from a career standpoint, I think that's one of the reasons it kind of vaulted to my list from the very get-go. I was fortunate enough to have a really good friend who went here a couple years ahead of me, and just hearing from him about the kind of community and everybody else, if they answer this question, are gonna talk about people. I know it's cliche, but honestly, SOM does have some of the most well-rounded, passionate folks that I've ever been around. And then thirdly, as somebody who's going to apply through the consortium, that did help frame the list of schools that I was looking at. And just to shed a little bit of light about what consortium is for those who may be less familiar, Effectively, it's an organization that has relationships with a number of schools throughout the U.S. There's kind of a common app where you can apply to a lot of these schools at once. You kind of rank your preferences, and then you go through just the normal application process. If and when you're accepted to some of those schools, you become eligible to be considered for admission to the consortium, which can come with scholarships, fellowships, and things like that. And I think one of the best parts about it is really the community you get, not only at SOM, but from everybody else who's kind of going through this process at some of the other member schools. And we actually get to spend a good amount of time together before school starts. You go to what's called orientation program at some city around in the U.S., and it's actually some of the first people you get to meet in the SOM community or consortium folks. So that's a little bit about my decision-making process. But. Great.
I think that's a really great description of what the consortium is as well. There are other resources out there for students of color, like Management Leadership for Tomorrow, MLT. So Natalia, I'll ask you, I guess, the same question as Phil, but then also talk a little bit about your MLT experience. So why did you choose to attend SOM?
Right. So I think those of you who are in MLT will distinctively remember that big, massive spreadsheet that they give us to pick schools, and there was a couple of key criteria and qualities that I was looking for in the business school of my choice. Definitely culture and community was up there. I know I need a supportive community to thrive, and this place offer that. Moreover, though, I was looking for a place where I could build and I could be entrepreneurial. That is my medium to long-term goal, to be an entrepreneur. So here I've seen plenty of opportunities where we, the students, do things for the first time, and I think it's an exciting place. For example, 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the SOM Serves Week. It's the second time we do it. One of our peers started that. We had the first cannabis legal conference just a month ago. So that's just multiple examples of us doing things for the first time and building the school that we love and that we want for the future. And then last but not least, I am a bit stingy, and I was looking for a cost-effective place to go to school. And I think that having gone to Florida State for undergrad, a college town, I think I had a sense of what that lifestyle could be, and I was absolutely okay with being with my peers during the weekends, hanging out in a small city, but in a very cost-effective way to get through business school. So I always encourage people to really do the math really well and see what's the net cost of your MBA when comparing from city to city.
Wonderful. Could you share maybe a little bit about what MLT is and how you heard about it?
Sorry about that. Yes, let's talk about that. So basically, MLT is a process that takes about 8 months, where minority students are paired up with career coaches that will, on a monthly basis, get with you on the phone to talk about some of your previous career accomplishments, review your essays, kind of keep you in line with that GMAT story, and give you some encouraging words to keep pushing. I pushed many times, so if anyone has questions about that, happy to speak about the GMAT process. Long story short, after that 8-month process, you literally have your coach by the end with the decision making of, I have my spreadsheet with the schools I've been accepted to, and literally by his hand, John helped me pick among the 5 schools I was accepted to come to this place. And we are about a group of at the time we were about a group of 250 to 300 students nationwide throughout the whole country.
Wonderful. And you can find out more about MLT at ml4t.org if you are interested in the program. Vance, could you tell us a little bit about your experience, especially in the career side? I think that School of Management is typically known for its strength in nonprofit and social enterprise and education, but you're making a transition into consulting. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big reasons why I decided to come to SOM was the mission of educating leaders for business and society. So I am somebody who wants to have a long-term impact in the education sector. Closing the achievement gap is my greatest goal. And so I was looking for a business school where I could kind of learn private sector insights and be able to apply them to public sector problems. And then coming here, I also knew I wanted a different experience than my teaching and administrative experience, so a different experience from the education sector. And so consulting seemed to be the right path for me in that it would give me a number of opportunities to learn very, very quickly from different industries and different sectors and different functions that I could use then to apply back into the education sector in the long run. And SOM, I think, is one of, if not the best school to prepare people to go into consulting. I was a leader of the consulting club, so I might be semi-biased, but Uma might tell me. But, I mean, essentially, the consulting club is an incredibly structured club that we try and get students to treat like a class, because if you go through it and treat it rigorously in the way that it is designed to be treated, you will be more prepared than anybody else at any other business school to succeed in your interviews. It meets every Thursday in fall one, goes through the entire process of what is consulting, what skills might be good for consulting or might you learn in consulting. Then it goes into how should you approach networking events when companies come on campus. It goes into you form case teams with other first years that are led by second years who are successful in the interview process. You do all your casing practice with them, and the case can be a scary interview, but having to do 30 to 40 cases with your peers and with second years will make you prepared by the time the interviews come. We also schedule things like mock madness, where consultants will actually come from different firms, many of whom are alumni and are really hoping to see SOM do well. Will come and do actual mock interviews where you go through the process that you would normally go through, and they provide a lot of great feedback and networking opportunities for students. And so I essentially just followed that process and was successful, and I'm very happy that I was able to take advantage of the consulting club here.
Wonderful. Uma, you mentioned that you're really involved with the admissions kind of process for students who are coming to visit campus and students who are thinking about SOM. Could you tell us maybe what you find to be the kind of best kept secret? So things that students who come to visit don't know about SOM, but you are happy to share with them.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that, I mean, not to sound like, like a tape recorder kind of talking about the people, but I think what's really distinctive about SOM and the SOM culture is, since we are a smaller class, we're really tight-knit. And that means that the second years here at SOM are really invested in the first years. And that comes from not only from like the club leadership aspect, but just the affinity groups. Like, everybody here wants everyone to succeed. And I think that that's so empowering. So I would say the best kept secret is to really just reach out to people who you think have positions that are interesting, who you think are part of clubs that you think are interesting, or part of initiatives that you want to be a part of. And people will respond to your emails. People will get back to you. We're all busy, but we want you to come here, because if you're interested in the same things we're interested in, chances are we're going to get along great, and we're going to have a wonderful network for years to come. So I would say, like, if you have any questions at all, everyone's going to want to answer your questions. And so reach out, get your questions answered. Everyone's willing to, grab a cup of coffee or grab a drink. And I think it was kind of marked during my very first interaction with SOM was just like a general info session in New York. And I went up to somebody and I was like, oh, I'm really interested in education. Turns out she was one of the co-chairs for the Education and Leadership Conference when she was here at SOM. Then she connected me to other alumni of SOM. And I must have met like 4 or 5 SOM alumni before I even applied to SOM in the first place. And I think it just speaks to the generosity and the willingness to share that's just so distinct here.
Wonderful. And you can find a lot of that information on our website. So we have admissions ambassadors that you can look at a little bit about their profile and see if there's anything of interest to you, and you can reach out to them. You can also reach out to the clubs. So we have a list of kind of club ambassadors who are willing to chat with prospective students. So we're open to taking questions. We did get one question, which is, what is the difference between MLT and the consortium? And so I'll do a quick description of the two. MLT is a preparatory program. So it is a program that helps prepare students for the application process to an MBA program. And as Natalia mentioned, it's about 8 months before you actually submit your application. There's an application process to get into MLT, and you'll work with your coach over those months to help submit the best, strongest applications you can to whichever MBA programs you choose to apply to. The consortium is more of like a vehicle through which you apply to MBA programs. So they have information sessions that you can attend in the fall, and you can learn more about the consortium partner schools, of which there are 19. You can make a decision to apply to a slate of consortium schools. I think you can do up to 6 on one application. You'll hear back from all of those schools roughly around the same time, and then you can make a decision as to whether or not you are interested in attending one of those consortium member schools. And being a member of the consortium or partnering with the consortium member school means you have access to that wonderful community that Phil was mentioning a little bit earlier, but it also means that you have access to their corporate partners. And they have really strong corporate partnerships. The organization has been around for 52 years, I think now. And so they really have long-standing and deep corporate partnerships. So that would be the kind of the difference between those two, but I would encourage you to go online and to research it a little bit more. Okay. So there's a question about the curriculum and teaching style. So I guess maybe we can ask Uma, maybe since you just have gone through the integrated curriculum or most of it, if you can tell us a little bit about the integrated curriculum, and then I'll ask one of the second years to talk about some of the electives.
Sure. So the integrated curriculum is really distinct and very valuable, especially, I'm also going into consulting, and the classes and the approach that they put in the integrated curriculum, where you're blending a bunch of different topics together to really understand the business case, is what I'm going to be doing on a day-to-day basis in my job. So just to give you an overview of how this integrated curriculum is structured, you get to campus and your first quarter here at SOM will be kind of your basics classes, where you learn basics of accounting, basics of microeconomics. You learn how to build, a model in Excel. So basically you're building this really important skill set that you're going to need to learn how to apply once you start getting into the actual integrated part of the curriculum. So after that first quarter, then you're thrown straight into the integrated perspective classes. And so you're taking classes like customer, where you're approaching it from a marketing, accounting, and economics perspective. You'll be taking a class called competitor, which is a strategy course, but also takes into account a lot of economics and accounting concepts as well. And so a lot of these perspective courses are essentially blending everything you've learned and solidifying that foundation as you keep going through the curriculum, building on that skill set and that thought process one after the other. It's really valuable because it teaches you quickly how to hone in on the most salient aspects of a business case, and understand, what type of analysis you really need to do to understand the complexities of the case that you're studying, as well as maybe thinking about, the financial valuations, and, a number of other issues that you would be involved with as you keep going through. Right now we're in our capstone classes, which is really cool. They say that there's one capstone class, executive, but I think that there's actually 3. I think it's executive, state and society, and innovator, where essentially you're putting everything that you've learned together to really do in-depth analyses on different business cases and really understand the different dynamics at play. And the teachers do a really great job of presenting that. What's really cool about it is you'll have multiple teachers in the classroom for your integrated curriculum courses. And so you'll have, for our customer class, we had someone who's doing economics from a more classical perspective and someone who's doing more strategy. Or in our state and society class, we have someone who's a bit more like psychological, like economic behavior theory, and someone who's a little more grounded in some more of like the actual like finance aspects. And so it's a really cool perspective to be a part of and really dynamic discussions as a result.
Fantastic. Vance, would you mind sharing with us perhaps your favorite elective and kind of this teaching style that is used in that favorite elective?
Oh, favorite is really challenging. So as I'm thinking, I'm just gonna once you get to second year, you can take whatever you want, which means you can take electives at SOM at other schools, including the undergrad, which is amazing. So I listed like 5 classes here, so pick one. I think maybe my favorite would be, I took a cross-listed Jackson Law and SOM class with Professor Eric Braverman, who used to run, who was in it?
That's right, it was great.
Who used to run the Clinton Foundation and now runs the Wendy and Eric Schmidt Foundation. But the course was called Ethical Choices in Public Leadership. And it was you know, we got to get out of SOM in one of the old buildings on Hill House Avenue, which is a beautiful street. And there was like 12 of us, 12 to 20 of us in a room. And it was all about grappling with really, really challenging ethical situations and thinking about, you know, if this comes up with us in our workforce experience, which it inevitably will, what are the frameworks and approaches that you can take to ensure that you're making the correct ethical decision in a public leadership context. And it was amazing, and that the professor was really strong, and that we had students that were from SOM, we had students from Jackson, we had students from the law program, students from the School of Forestry, and everybody kind of came together in this really collaborative and engaging environment where people are challenging each other's ideas on what is ethics and what is right and wrong. Is there a right and wrong? Where are the red lines? It was just really an amazing class.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can, it sounds really amazing. What are the other 4 classes? You could just list them out, just so that people can look them up on their own.
I have this kind of dichotomy about first years you should listen, on how you should approach your second year classes, and there's veggies,
Okay.
and there's entrees, right?
Okay.
So veggies are the classes that like you have to take. I'm doing consulting, amazing class, competitive strategy, right? CompStrat, it's an amazing class. Corporate finance, another really important class. I consider those veggies. Then there's entrees. So on the entree side, ethical choice and public leadership, innovation in government and society, urban poverty and economic development.
Okay.
I am taking an undergrad class, well, I'm actually auditing it, on economics of education, which is very exciting. And last year I took a class that was talent management and K-12 education, which was here at SOM, which was just focused on like our employee class or human resources and talent management just for K-12 education, which is very relevant to what I want to do.
Wonderful. We've got a lot of questions in. We're going to try our best to answer them all. One of the questions is, Natalia, can you tell us a little bit more about the first ever ALAS conference?
Sure, I'm happy to speak to it. Stop me because I can talk a lot, okay? So basically, it all started when Dean Snyder, prior to me being accepted to the school, posed a question in a classroom just like this as to what was the impact we wanted to make. And then it occurred to me at the moment that I just raised my hand and I said, I'm going to organize here with the team the first Hispanic and Latin America conference. Fast forward, we had a team of about 18 people, a combination of Hispanic Americans and Latin Americans who were raised abroad to organize the conference. I think the question was like as to why my interest, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Or just about the conference.
Sure. So thank you. I do have a personal interest in this. I am an immigrant, and I have noticed a trend across the U.S. Through my involvement with the largest STEM organization for Hispanics in this country that most of us had to leave due to lack of economic opportunities. So organizing the conference was kind of really attacking kind of like that root cause of why so many of us have to move to the U.S. Don't get me wrong, I love this country. I'm just as American, but I really want to like get to the root cause. The conference this year talked about leading through uncertainty. We had a sponsors such as Uber, Latin America, Bain, United States, PepsiCo, Latin America, a really good, strong group of sponsors. But most importantly, the discussions throughout the day were super relevant to like what is pressing in both communities. In Latin America, we talked about entrepreneurship and how do we drive innovation in the region so that all of the innovation doesn't just come out of Silicon Valley. So that we have Buenos Aires, Medellin, Lima, like producing tech and producing ideas. And then for the Hispanic American community, we talked about immigration, what's going on with DACA, how can we be allies and support this community through some of the hardship that they're going right now with the current presidency. And then last but not least, we obviously talked about education. So we tried a bit of an exercise where it was like, just for one workshop, people could just pay for that, not for the whole conference. And we had a massive attendance of all of our allies here in the school who deeply care about education. And we really discussed some of the progress Hispanic Americans have made in the country, but some of the gaps that we still have pressing and that can be a potential inhibitor to the economic growth of the country. So it was really good to bring people like Mark Mark Davis, Yale College alumni. He was actually the lead of Hispanic education strategy at the White House, and he was here with us. And he was also with us at the party at the evening. So we're very close to alumni, even those who are from the Yale College and not just the Yale SOM.
Wonderful. So there have been a couple of questions that have a similar theme, which is, what is it like to be a student of color outside of SOM, so here in New Haven? What is life like?
I'm happy to start off. I think it's pretty welcoming. I'd say New Haven has the highest concentration of people of color as a community that I've ever lived in. So I think in a practical sense, what that means is it's really nice to kind of just walk the streets and see like smiling faces that look just like yours. I think whether it's like kinds of foods that you're interested in, or like personal care, it's nice being in an environment where you're not having to like trek 30 or 45 minutes away to get your hair cut or do something like that. So I do think it is a really welcoming environment, but I think, and I think this is something that a lot of urban campuses struggle with. There is a little bit of, I think there's still some like bridges that we can do to build between the local community and what's happening at the school. And I do think some of the students of color are actually leading the charge on those. We mentioned SOM Serves earlier. In the Education Club next year, we're leading a push to try to get more mentorship and volunteer work happening in schools, kind of in the local community. So I think that being said, like, it's a really welcoming community, and I think, but we still realize that we have a lot of work to do. And I think that the great news is it's not just the students of color who are leading that; it's everybody who knows that these are issues and challenges that are definitely worth tackling. But overall, it's a great environment.
I also think that in terms of like the broader graduate network, I think that, for example, I can speak from the perspective of a Black student, that there's a lot of involvement and engagement across grad schools. And so a lot of us at SOM here are very involved in the Black Graduate Network, which connects Black students from essentially any graduate program. And through that, there's a lot of academic, social, and recreational, social recreation, and kind of supportive events that we are aware of and that we get invited to, and they get invited to all of our events. And because of that, when you go across campus, there's kind of usually a friendly face wherever you go. And I think that the Black Grad Network is one of the most amazing things about Yale as a whole.
That's wonderful. There are a couple of questions that are, I think, more structurally related, and so I'll try to answer them, but then also ask you about your experiences with them. So there's a question about majors and minors and concentrations, and also a question about learning teams. So at SOM, we currently do not have majors or minors. As Vance was describing earlier, you have, Vance and Uma, you have the structure of the core curriculum in the first year, and then you have the opportunity to take electives anywhere that you want in your second year. You can take a few in your first year as well. And we do have learning teams that are assigned to you at the beginning of your time here at SOM. Does anyone want to talk about their learning team experience?
Sure. Okay. So there is, I think a lot of the business schools have this, but there's like a proprietary algorithm that Yale uses in order to essentially make sure that your learning teams and your cohorts, which, let me just back up. So our class size is about 350 students, and you're split into 5 cohorts of about 70 people. Those cohorts are technically statistically identical to one another. And so I think that, that comes from a bunch of different things. It could be, like professional backgrounds, demographics, etc. And then within your cohort, you're dropped down into learning teams of about 8 people. And again, the learning teams are then also statistically identical to all of the other learning teams in the cohort. And then further down, you're broken down into learning teams of 4. And so you don't get to choose who's on your learning team. But what's really great about it is you have a very diverse set of people that you're surrounded by. And diverse can mean, again, any number of things. It can be, where you come from. It can be your professional experience. It could be your volunteer experience. It could be your viewpoints on different things. And I think that's what's so enriching about it is you're thrown into this learning team of 4 to 8 people, depending on the class and the type of work you'll be doing. And you really take the time to get to know them, not only personally, but also professionally, because you'll have to work with them on a lot of assignments. We have an entire class dedicated to learning how to work with your learning team called Managing Groups and Teams. That really sets the foundation for making sure that you're able to work with them throughout the year, but also develop these like really close personal ties with them. So it's a really fun experience, and I think it's always kind of hit or miss in the sense that like sometimes you're gonna butt heads with somebody, but what's great about it again is that's what's going to happen in the real world, and you have to try and figure out how to deal with it, and they give you the resources in order to be able to do that.
And I guess just briefly on the concentrations, I know a lot of other schools you might actually declare a concentration. I think one thing that we've kind of touched on is the professional clubs. And to take like a step back, there's really three flavors of clubs here. There's the professional clubs, which are kind of like the help you get a job clubs. So like education club, Vance mentioned the consulting club. So that's kind of one bucket. There's affinity clubs, which are basically groups that you either self-identify with or view yourself as an ally to, and they host a lot of kind of community events around those topics. And then there's the kind of like general miscellaneous like fun clubs, which will be like hockey, like Vance mentioned, food and wine clubs, kind of whatever you can think of. So going back to that first bucket on the professional clubs, they're a really helpful resource for the folks who are like dead set on what you want to do. They have lists of electives and coursework that's kind of like pre-vetted and really popular for folks who are like want to go into like finance or consulting or what have you. So you absolutely will get support kind of from that club level. We have AASL, which is the Academic Affairs and Student Life division of the university, who can also advise on coursework that's actually going to be really relevant to what you want to do depending on your career task. So I would say like don't get too hung up on sort of not being able to declare concentration. You'll get all the coursework you want in whatever topic is most relevant to you.
Great. Thank you very much. So there are a couple of questions for the second years, but let's start off with the first years. Why not? Kind of keep it interesting. What surprised you most about the Yale SOM community or the broader Yale community when you got here?
I think it was how academically rigorous SOM was. Like, I wanted an academically rigorous program. I was out of school for 7 years before I came back to business school, and so it took me a while to remember how to learn. You know what I mean? And so I was kind of taken aback at first, but then I quickly grew to appreciate how academically rigorous SOM's curriculum truly is, because that first quarter, like I was mentioning earlier, is all of your basics classes, and it is hard. It is challenging. It is strenuous. You're spending a lot of time because you're trying to juggle everything at the same time, which is learning how to learn, as well as getting to know people and figuring out what clubs you want to join and getting thrown to recruitment all at the same time. And so I think but quickly you realize how important that is and that foundation is, because then once you got thrown into the integrated curriculum, once I started actively doing recruitment, I had this base foundation of being able to manage everything and understanding that like the academics are important and like the discussions that you're having in class are so enriching and things that you then bring into your conversations during recruitment or with, while you're networking and things like that.
Wonderful. Phil, same
Yeah,
question.
and not to counteract, but I studied business in undergrad, so I think what I was most surprised about is how much you can get from kind of going through it again, because I think if you did study whether it's business or econ or accounting or something like that before, when you're going through it the first time, you don't know how to appropriately weight like the things that you're learning because you haven't yet gotten a chance to apply them necessarily. And then having worked for 6 years and then coming back, and I was a little rusty in accounting, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'd like dust off the cobwebs a bit, but I do think there's a lot you can glean from it, just even the second time around. And I think Uma just touched on learning teams before, but sometimes you're like the superstar on the team because you have a basis in what that was before, and you're helping kind of lift other people up, and you do it because you want to see everybody thrive, and you also know that somewhere down the line, the roles are going to be reversed, and there's going to be a course that's going to be your offhand, or you're going to be interviewing for a career that you don't have a background in, but somebody else on your team does. So I do think everybody's like strengths and weaknesses will crop up at different times throughout the process, but I think that's something that's like openly discussed and celebrated and supported here, not something where you're trying to like guard your flank because you're worried about like somebody not thinking you're smart enough or whatever. It's like people are very like open and vulnerable about what they are trying to work on, what they need help with, and I think everybody's really great about supporting that.
Wonderful. I'm actually going to say the second year question towards the end, so maybe in about 5 minutes or so. There was a question that came in earlier about entrepreneurship. I think it was directed to you, Natalia, but anyone who wants to kind of talk about that should and could. So the question specifically is, how does SOM provide opportunities for you to kind of be entrepreneurial? And can you speak to the resources that we have here? So that's an open question, but you can get us started.
Sure, I can take a stab at it and feel free to jump in, people. So we have the Entrepreneurship Club that if you're an entrepreneur and you want to add value, you're more welcome to join to continue building it. Again, I don't mean to say that we have gaps here. What we have is like a ton of opportunities to build what we want out of that entrepreneurship club, and they have been super strong this year. Really engaging a lot of our community with the SCI Innovation Center closer to downtown college. And basically they have about 4-month programs where you can try your idea, and it counts as a credit for your classes. In addition to that, we actually have the Yale Entrepreneur Week happening right now as we speak, where we're going to have about $130,000 worth of awards going to student ventures. That's kind of high level classes-wise. We have a pretty good offering. My favorite was entrepreneurship through acquisition. It is a different kind of entrepreneurship. It is about search funds, raising money. As a recent, recently graduated MBA, raising money, looking for a small to medium enterprise, buying it, making that company better, selling it, and keeping some part of the pie, as also your investors will take some part of that pie too. Just kind of like in a nutshell, I would encourage students who are considering us for entrepreneurship to, number one, reach out to our co-chairs. Eleni and Tejas are super active and super responsive. Number two, look at the SCI Innovation Center. And number three, definitely be very specific about like us sharing with you like the list of the classes that I think could add value for your entrepreneurial interests.
And just so that you all know, SCI is spelled T-S-A-I. So if you wanted to look it up, that is an easy way. Does anyone else want to share anything about entrepreneurship?
I just wanted to quickly add as well that there's a lot of resources to help pair you up with people if you do have an interesting idea or you want to be part of a startup or a cool entrepreneurial venture. So I think SciCity does this to a certain degree. We do have an entrepreneurship center here at SOM, like the Honest Tea Entrepreneurship Center, that has a lot of focused resources as well for you. And I know that the faculty head for the entrepreneurship department, Kyle Jensen, is also very responsive. And so he loves talking to you about everything that he's done, and he's so passionate. And so if you are interested in it as well, I think that's a great resource.
Wonderful. There was a question at the outset around scholarship and financial aid here at SOM. And I'm going to speak quickly about that. One, because I think that there's really great resources online for you to take a look at. It'll tell you a little bit more about kind of internal scholarships that we have, but also lots of external scholarships, in particular scholarships that are specific to people of color that exist outside of SOM, just exist outside with other foundations or organizations. But we give out scholarships based on the application strength, and we consider all applicants for scholarship. So I think that if you want to be considered for scholarship, and obviously admission, put forth the best application possible for you. And sometimes we're able to match scholarship recipients with particular donors who have interests in that specific industry or specific region of the world. But we really do try our best to give scholarships out to the students that we think are really have the strongest applications, that have submitted the strongest applications. About 1/3 of our student body is receiving some form of scholarship that is coming from Yale. vast majority of students, I forget the exact number, are receiving some form of financial aid, which does include loans. So if you are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, you are likely taking out some federal loans. If you are an international student, we also have non-cosigner needed loans available for you. But there's a lot more information about our scholarship opportunities online. So we are probably coming down to the last question. So I will pose this one to the second years. Looking back on your time at SOM, what are some of the opportunities you wish you would have taken advantage of? So you can actually direct these to the first year so they will not kind of miss out on those same opportunities. Vance, what are some opportunities that you wish you would have taken advantage of?
Let's see. So I guess academically, so I've taken advantage of a lot of things. I'm very happy that I've done that, but I think that I would have done a little more in certain areas. One is I think that there are so many amazing opportunities that you can get involved with at Yale. So there's a lot of amazing classes at the law school, in undergrad, and I've done some Jackson, but there are good ones at Jackson as well. Drama, architecture, like there's a lot of amazing classes, and I think at the beginning of the year I would have taken more time to think about like where are those classes and getting input from other people like the Black Grad Network around like what are the amazing classes in your school that I should be taking. That's one. Number two, I also like you can create your own classes too. So independent studies are a thing. If there's something you're truly passionate about, finding a professor to sponsor independent study not only gets you access to a professor who's probably an expert in the space, but also allows you to get academic credit to do something that you are really passionate about. Can I say something that I'm happy I took advantage of?
Sure.
Okay. I'm really happy I took advantage of all the global opportunities. And so one of SOM's tenets is that the most distinctively global U.S. business school, and that is 100% true in two ways. One, cut me off if I need to.
No, go for it.
One are the SOM-sponsored things, trips, and then there are student-led ones. So on the SOM-sponsored side, I've had the opportunity to do an international experience in Indonesia, helping a professor out with his research that won him the Carnegie Fellowship, which is really amazing research. Our part didn't help at all. He was already going to win it. But got to help him out with his research in Indonesia. I also got to do a Global Network Week in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That was my first time, actually second time going to South America. But that was a really amazing chance to take a class with students from around the global network, and also spend a lot of time in Brazil, which is amazing. And then there's student-led trips, which I think are actually more fun and speak to how tight-knit our community is here. And I'm going to put Natalia on the spot here. I've had like 3 opportunities where students have said, hey, I love my country. I want to take a group of SOM students who I care about, who are like my really close friends, and I want you to experience my country with me. And Natalia
invited the whole class, not just you.
The whole class, but a group of what, like 20 to 30 of us went to.
No, it was 41 of us.
41 of us.
So we
went to Colombia, and Natalia and a couple other Colombian classmates took us around Cartagena and Bogota and Santa Marta, and we had a really amazing experience. So much so that a few of our students from West Africa and one who runs a business in East Africa said, well, we're going to do the same thing in Africa. And Uma went to this one as well. So then we had the opportunity for students to take us to Nigeria, Ghana, and Rwanda. And again, it was all student-led, and they got to show us around those countries. And those were definitely, like, by far the highlights of my time here in my MBA program, and really speak to how just tight-knit our community is.
Wonderful. Natalia.
Should I take a stab at that? Tough act to follow. No worries, no worries. I have to learn to be concise, so you're giving me an opportunity right now. Number one, I would have front-loaded more classes in the spring semester, alluding to some of the exhaustion that I felt a little bit after the academic rigor. I should have just kind of pushed through in spring 2 at least, and like front-load more classes in order to take more advantage of like the other classes offered at different schools across campus. That's one regret. Another one is I learned English kind of like the rough way in Miami, so there is this graduate writing center that I should have leveraged to improve my communication skills. We also have a communication center here in the building. So those are some resources that I should have used to enhance my communication skills. I'm still a bit of a schmoozer, so far so good with the interviews. But still, number 3, the Sci Center. I just actually applied for one of the competitions for the summer fellowship program. We made it to semifinals, didn't really make it to finals, but I just wished I had applied last year. I didn't have the idea back then, but just like there are just so many resources at the Entrepreneurship Center for the broader university that I wish I had involved. I had gotten involved a little bit earlier. And then last but not least, I think that part always of like making these panels and like our sales pitch so real is, I'm going to be honest with you, as a woman of color, I wish I could have gotten more involved in WIM, but kind of like that entrepreneurial spirit with the ALAS community took quite a bit of my time, plus like being part of the consulting club for my some of my career aspirations. Like it's not easy sometimes being a minority candidate and really handling all of the priorities. So one regret that I have is not having joined WIM a lot more, because I think that the group is super strong, has done some amazing things to empower women. Coming from oil and gas, trust me, it's huge for me, but you can't do it all, I guess. So
well, you're gonna mirror what Vance did, so also kind of your absolute favorite experience here.
But it's the same.
It's the same. It's Colombia.
Yes, it's definitely Colombia. It's hard. Let me see if I come up with it.
But it's slightly different because you were leading it. So tell us a little bit about why you chose to do it.
I guess it definitely, it was pretty, I started convincing half of the class 6 months before the date of the trip. But I think what was really important to me was to show to this global community a different side of Colombia. We're known, unfortunately, due to narcos, or really the crisis of the 1990s, we're known for our cocaine and our drug problems in that country, and guerrillas, and you name it. But these people took a leap of faith and believed in us that this was a safe, fun country to visit. And what was beautiful about it was that there was a bit of a ripple effect. There were about 3 other trips to my home country. So I'm just proud that, again, I care about economic development in the region, and I'm proud that I added a little bit of value to my home country, by inviting people who would probably invite their relatives and friends to get to know this place. So, on a personal note, it was amazing.
And that is a wonderful note, I think, for us to end on. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon, at least here in New Haven, Connecticut. I hope that you'll stay in touch and engaged with the LSOM. Feel free to reach out to any of us. You can find many of our information online. And if you have any questions, as I mentioned earlier, feel free to email mba.admissions@yale.edu. It's been a pleasure to share a little bit about our community with you, and we look forward to meeting you in person soon. Thank you.